30 points from where he was during an election day in 2020 to 2020 to where they are now. Yes.
Which is remarkable. I mean, that really shows all the gains that they need to make.
The 2024 Republican presidential primary field is taking shape.
The battle lines are becoming clearer, and so is the field of candidates.
Is the odds-on favorites, if you look at the polling, still Trump versus Biden?
That seems to be it, but it's just way too early to tell.
I'm more angry now, and I'm more committed now than I ever was.
Big challenge for these candidates is going to be how do they navigate Donald Trump? And how do they navigate Ron DeSantis?
You and I have a rendezvous with destiny.
Welcome back to a great big Thursday on the Ruthless Variety program. Fellas, tonight, this very night, we are going to be hosting a big old-fashioned party. Right, Des Moines, Iowa.
Oh man, I can't wait!
Huge.
I love Iowa so much. I love the fair. I love everything about this state, and it's just a pleasure to be back.
Oh, it really is. That intro before we get into the rest of the Iowa deal was Dana Bash in panel on CNN talking about how Joe Biden has lost 30 points on his approval rating from where he was in Election Day 2020.
Oh no,
that seems significant.
Yeah,
seems like a bit of a problem. Seems like, and I like how they're like, well, we got to figure out a way out of this. That's right. That's what we got to do.
It gives you a
it's
little
our job in the journalism industry to get Biden out of this hole.
It gives you a little bit of new faith in the country that everybody's looking at this invalid who can't put two sentences together, and they're not like, oh, you know what, we're going to cover for him too, just like the press does. They're like,
well,
not sure he's the right guy.
45% of this country is more than willing to cover, to paraphrase Mitt Romney. More than willing to cover for Joe Biden if he shows up to the election or not. They're still casting a ballot.
No, it's partisanship for you.
I will say, Dana has got that new show, Inside Politics, on CNN, which is pretty good for people who are into politics. I have a lot to say about CNN this episode, so I feel like I need to at least acknowledge the good that is coming from that network. They have insightful stuff, and you don't get everybody on CNN that recognizes that the sky is blue like that.
No, and of course you had Jeff Zeleny, longtime political reporter, talking about how difficult the road is going to be for Joe Biden with this.
I mean, honestly, that's a really good point. I would not expect even hearing that on CNN, that he's down 30 points.
Well, it's on
that's surprising.
It's on
that
context,
show. Yeah.
On that show, right? Because she covers politics, and she's been around a long time. We've known her a long time, and she knows there's not one side of politics.
Right.
She's going to cover the whole thing, whether people like it or not. And I appreciate that. I will get into more of my observations about that later on in the show, about the rest of the program.
Are you telling me the rest of CNN doesn't observe objective reality?
I'm hinting, perhaps.
Oh, wow.
I'm hinting at it, perhaps. But Iowa. Guys, we have Ron DeSantis tonight. We got Nikki Haley tonight. We got the great governor, Kim Reynolds, and a great senator in Joni Ernst, and a whole bunch of folks who are going to have a hell of a time.
It's a packed house.
It's going to be rowdy.
It's been sold out, and I love how we got all the tickets to the venue sold out before they even saw the lineup, and then you get this lineup.
Yeah, well, that was
we
the
deliver.
point.
We deliver.
Look, that's what the Ruthless Variety program does. There's a lot of programs out there that try to book guests and then use their leverage to try to get the crowd. Our people are coming.
They're
you want to come,
wonderful folks.
But our people are coming because they want to show.
And it's going to be a packed house. It's going to rock and rolling in there.
Yeah, we're still hearing from people who are trying to get in, trying to get tickets, but unfortunately we have been sold out for some time, and there are fire codes that you have to adhere to.
That's right.
This is a restaurant. You have to respect the place. It's a ticketed event, but it will be live streamed.
It will be live streamed. It will be live streamed.
So everybody's going to have an opportunity to participate, whether you're in the house or not.
I got a couple of my mini boys coming down, too.
Nice.
So this thing's going to...
Nice.
They're really going to have it.
It's going to be a party.
All right, so let's get into the way we start every Thursday's program, which is a reading of the 5 stars, started with The Voice.
Okay, this first one is from Max5132, and it's titled Chekhov's Duncan. Max5132 writes, being a Zoomer minion who discovered Smug on Twitter in 2015, I was shocked when he announced he was starting a podcast. I was sold when he promised not to lecture me on the Federalist Papers. I recall, quote, Dunking with Duncan, where this guy named Duncan would come on and wail. Either it wasn't explained or I missed it, because for a long time I actually thought Duncan was another podcaster with his own show who sometimes visited Ruthless. Also, Does anyone else remember Moderate Jeff, or is that a figment of my imagination?
This is an old school
OG.
listener.
OG.
That is OG. So Moderate Jeff was the first producer of the program, and was an outgrowth of the fact that none of us, other than perhaps Duncan at the time, knew how to do anything other than plug our computers in and press power.
Even producer's a hell of a title, because the first few episodes I edited on the computer. I remember.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That explains the very poor audio quality. It was literally just like Microsoft Paint of audio.
And if I remember correctly, Smug, you basically just bullied Moderate Jeff.
I mean, that sounds about right.
I feel like that's...
My memory is hazy for those first few episodes.
Moderate Jeff sort of fashioned himself as a guy who could help you put a podcast online.
Yeah.
And he did do that.
He did.
He did do that.
Friendly guy.
Thank you for your service.
And then we separated ways.
Yeah.
Moderate Jeff being Moderate Jeff.
He was just too moderate.
He was just too moderate for us.
So Max goes on. He says, I was there every Tuesday and Thursday for months of Smug trying to learn the rules of Dem or Journo. Originally, this is the parenthetical, originally named Spot the Dem Operative.
This is so OG.
Yes, this is so good.
This might be from Moderate Jeff himself. He goes on, thank God that's figured out. Question for Smug Josh. Can you explain Chekhov's gun? Because Duncan has referenced the principle at least 3 times and has to explain it to you guys every single time. I'm starting to worry that nobody is listening to the old man.
Oh,
that's great.
Do you think that's a commentary on our listening skills to the old man? I feel like we do a lot of listening.
I don't think Duncan's ever explained it. I don't remember.
Maybe.
He's got the same application of the rules. Dunk, would you like to enlighten us?
It's just
Chekhov's gun.
It's when you have a narrative in a plot and you have the idea is Chekhov's gun. If you have a play and a gun is presented, you got to do something with it. The gun's got to go off.
It can't just go away.
It can't just go away. Every plot device has to have a point.
You've
in
introduced
the story.
an object into the story that, if otherwise unused, makes no sense whatsoever.
Well, I think then it's a red herring.
A red herring. Would you like to define? I'm just kidding.
The old man on rhetorical devices.
We have that on the microsite. Just 15 minutes of the old man describing rhetorical devices.
Well, Max wraps it up and says, you guys are great. I appreciate the optimism, insight, and variety provided by the program. P.S. I'll be the only person to say I found Megyn Kelly's podcast through Ruthless.
Wow.
Everybody else did it the wrong way.
Well, not the only one, but we certainly have been on a winning end of that.
We greatly appreciate that. And what a great 5-star.
Yeah,
Great
no,
5-star.
first class stuff. First class stuff. I love it. All right, old man.
This is perfect for me to read. The title here is In Deep Cover in CA in California. This is from Jeff in the Bay Area. Jeff writes, dedicated listener from the very beginning. Parenthetical, no Megyn Kelly latecomer here. In deep cover operating in the very blue Silicon Valley. Although my cover might have been blown by the ridiculously large Ruthless shipping label on my recently arrived merch.
That's a nice touch, by the way.
Yeah. It's not coming like Blue Chew.
No.
Everybody's gonna know. Everyone's gonna know.
Wait, you got a Blue Chew package?
No, but you know how if you ever listen to a podcast, all the commercials are like, it comes in discreet, packaging.
Not the Ruthless variety program.
I appreciate that so much, because it's like I get a pile of mail and I know I'm going to hate all of it. And then I saw the Ruthless label. I'm like, oh shit, the bug is here.
Yes.
Finally, something I want.
Yeah.
He continues here. California's 2 major exports are amazing technology and Republican voters. The only thing missing from this otherwise top 5 podcast is a dedicated UAP segment. UAP is now the new term for unidentified aerial phenomenon. It's not UFOs anymore.
Politically correct.
Here we go. Look what you've done.
Add that to the mix, and the variety program moves to the top 2 and will rival the Joe Rogan pod.
I mean, it's very kind. I will say, I'm skeptical that it's UAP content that we're missing here.
You, of course, would be trying to hide the truth.
Yeah. Look, the establishment is trying to hide the
yet
truth
again
from the grassroots.
Yet again.
Look
Yet
at
again.
you. Well, Jeff.
9/11 was an inside job. So,
the aliens did it.
Jeff continues. Can't wait to attend a Ruthless live stream in San Francisco once Gavin Newsom elbows past POTUS.
He's trying.
Just make sure to have plenty of Congressman Luttrell's former associates standing at the ready and you'll be fine.
Wow.
I like that.
Outstanding.
Good advice. And also, Luttrell's a good guy to know if you ever come into that scenario.
You just need to know him, period.
Just a couple
strikes
operators.
me as a good guy to know in a bunch of different places.
Yeah. I haven't taken him up on his advice to try walking 50 miles in a day. You remember that in the cold showers? You've done the cold showers.
I did the
Dude,
30
you guys,
day.
hold on. Let's talk about this. Because Luttrell came on our program, for those of you who missed this, and he's like, just try walking 50 miles a day and you'll change your life.
And for folks who didn't hear, he's an operator. The dude did some shit, saw some shit. And that's where he comes from with this advice.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, he and his brother are American heroes in every sense of the phrase. But he gave us 2 recommendations. One was walk 50 miles, which seemed inhumane and ridiculous for my personal lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second one was take 30 days straight of cold showers. Also, for me, a tough thing to do. But what you need to know about Ashbrook is that if ever there is a life improvement suggestion that seems completely insane, the guy will try it.
Yeah, he will.
Did you try the thing? The cold shower?
Luttrell is a Navy SEAL, and so he speaks with some authority on the subject of personal health, I would say. I did not do the 50-mile walk because it's just a very time-consuming thing. I don't have enough.
Just because it's time-consuming.
I would try it if I had the time to try it, but I just didn't have the time to try it. So what I did have the time to try is just turning my shower dial to cold for 30 days in a row. Let me tell you, I think he's right.
What?
I really think he's right. I think that when you take a cold shower, it's freezing at first, very uncomfortable at first, but after about 90 seconds, all of a sudden you get used to it, and you don't even really notice it. And
how does this help you outside of the shower?
It's got to be good for circulation.
Well, let me tell you,
your brain.
In my mind, it's sort of like a poor man's workout. Because it's like an executive workout.
Oh, okay.
Because you get your blood pumping for no reason. It's not because you ran. It's not because you're doing sit-ups or push-ups. It's just like you stand in cold water, your blood starts going, and you walk out and you feel invigorated as if you had just completed a run.
Yeah.
And so I did it for 30 days, and I still do it from time to time.
Really?
So
Wow.
I actually tried this a while ago. And
I don't believe you did anything with discomfort associated with it.
This is these are the fastest showers I've taken in my life.
Yeah.
I had no idea I could get ready in the morning that quickly. I
trimmed her down from 3 hours to 2.
Well, I didn't get used to it after 90 seconds. It sucked the entire way through.
You didn't get used to okay.
It's
We got to be more mentally tough, Smug. The whole point is mind over matter.
Yeah.
The 50 miles thing is you don't have to run it. You just have to disconnect your brain from your body hurting and do it.
The other
it's
thing,
the same sort of thing with the shower.
Yeah,
right?
the other thing it does is it gives you a sense of accomplishment, actually earned or not. It's not actually earned accomplishment.
Yeah.
We're living in modern America where everything is so easy for us, but it gives you a sense of accomplishment in the morning, like you've actually done so, you've achieved.
Well, it's the same as
something
making your bed every morning.
Well, you're right.
That's a great way
I think
to start.
you're right.
It.
I think
You've already gotten one thing.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? You've done one thing. It's in the same vein. It's well, shit, I've already come that.
When you blow dry your hair in the morning, oftentimes you'll go from warm to maybe a cool breeze.
Yeah. Just to switch it up.
I'm old school. I just comb it while it's wet.
I love that. All right, what's our third one here, Smuggaroo?
So this is from Brittany MK. It says, American Founding Book Rex. I'm obsessed with you guys, and I play my favorite parts for my husband, who always dies laughing. Thank you so much. I'm just catching up from the 4th of July because I was busy keeping my 4 young kids on the outside.
Yep.
And I have to share. As an extended family, the Sunday before, we got together for a family book club to discuss The 5,000-Year Leap. We all agreed it needs to be a high school reading requirement as it lays out the ideologies of the Founding Fathers and brings to light different characters I didn't know about. Why we need at least the concept of God as a country, and was very humbling to deep dive into the minds of these inspired men and the context in which they write the Constitution. Give it a read. I'd love to hear you guys discuss your favorite parts too. I love that idea.
That's great.
I've heard such great things about that book and from a lot of folks about how specifically the founders would be a great cornerstone for education in this country where
wouldn't that be something?
Yeah. I mean, they are the cornerstone of the country, so
Yeah.
I think it'd be fair to teach folks about it.
A fascinating concept.
Yeah. Can you imagine?
My only question about all of this is how the 4 young kids are compatible with reading the 5,000 year leap. That seems like a tough order.
I think we call that good parenting. You know, you tell the kids, here, you have to read this book, and they read it. You've been doing your job.
I mean, I guess you can hammer it out like in the morning if you wake up early, or at night after they go to bed. It takes a commitment, but I think
you know what? I've just opened my Amazon app, and I am right now swiping to place my order.
Yeah.
That book is on its way. It's arriving August 11th. Let's call it. So when we get back from Iowa. I will be. I'll be starting that.
Ashbrook.
Listen to this guy. He's going to hop in a cold shower and read about the founding fathers.
I love our guests. I love our audience. Our audience is the best in the business, and if they have a recommendation, I'm going to follow it.
You got to be careful with that.
Well,
because,
okay.
Hold on. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to our audience. If you have a recommendation, he really will follow it.
Yeah.
So like. Let's try to keep it positive. Like if he shows up in a tri-corner hat and a trident, like I'm blaming you personally.
It's like that Jim Carrey movie where like he has to say yes to everything.
Yeah, Liar, Liar.
No, not Liar, Liar. It's called Yes Man, I think.
Oh, okay.
It's same concept.
Yeah.
So I like where your head's at, but like that is John Ashbrook. I remember at one point early on when we started the company, Henneberg convinced him to go vegan for like an entire week.
Yeah,
like out of the blue.
You did it for a week,
and he hated it, but he
it
did
wasn't great.
But
wanted to try it.
Yeah, but he's easy. He's prone to suggestion.
He's a suggestion.
But that's what we appreciate.
That's mind over matter. Look at that, Ashbrook.
I appreciate brotherhood. Yeah, I appreciate the ideas from the people I respect.
Yeah,
and
nobody appreciates brotherhood quite like Smash. There's no question about that.
Great suggestion. Great suggestion. Could not agree more.
All right, we're gonna check that out, fellas. I need you to react to something because you know how we like peruse the internet for some of our favorite stuff on a week-to-week basis, and now that we have Wolf doing like all of the amazing things that he's doing, which by the way, have a look at the sign.
Yeah,
Have a look at that
check
sign.
out the new sign.
Doesn't that look great for our folks on YouTube?
Yeah,
that's another one.
If
If you're only listening, let me tell you, get on YouTube, get on Rumble. We're there too.
Yeah, it's like a
check it out.
It's like the St. Pauli's girl, but better. Yeah,
but better. So we've been talking a lot about animals attacking, animals becoming, you know, more modernized in their way of affecting our civilization.
Mm-hmm.
Check out this seagull that we picked up this week. This is unbelievable to me. The fucking thing is figured out that there is an auto door here, and it strolls into a supermarket, grabs a sandwich out of the cold rack, like it bruises a little bit. Like it wants to make sure it's got the right one.
He's like, I prefer tuna over ham.
He starts pecking at it a little bit in the store. Like, is this the one that I like? Like, give it. I don't know. Let me look and see if there's some more.
This is insane.
And then it's like, yep, I got the right one. Hey, why is this sensor not working?
And he knows.
Yeah, it's looking up at the
how
sensor.
It works. He's like,
Looking
come
up
on,
at
you
the
dumb
sensor.
sensor.
Come on, man. Let me out of this joint. I'm on my way. And then this guy comes along and he's like, oh, thank God.
But I love how that person, you know, was polite and let
and off it
Seagull
goes.
get right away.
No.
What the hell?
The lady in a red umbrella tries to chase it back into the store, which seemed like a huge mistake.
Well, that's it. You know what? That brings up a couple debates. Number one, this is a clear sign of the animal threat. Number two, you know, if you are a bystander, do you stop theft when you see it in the store? You know, because that lady made the move to try and do it.
She was going to stop no matter what was coming out.
Yeah, I mean, to see it, like, huge kudos to her, where she was like, you know what, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna stop them right here, because, like, you know, all these stores will tell employees, do not stop theft in progress, be it man or beast.
And it actually, it seems to extend to bird life, the aviary community, as we like to call it here on the Variety Pod.
You know, a recent lesson I have learned is seeing the killer whales, where, like, you see all these articles, and apparently they're, like, passing the knowledge of, like, here's how you attack the boats.
Yeah.
Whenever you see an animal like this, you gotta kill him, you know, or else, or else word will spread.
Well, no, I'm with Smug on this. Like the whales are one thing. Like, they're in the ocean. Like, that is their domain. What you're seeing here with the seagull,
that's our supermarket.
They're crossing this thin line between the wild and civilization.
Yes.
And they're invading our world.
Yeah.
It's like, these are the sort of animals you really have to send a message with.
You really do. I look, you've provided me an opening here. The owner of your football team is paying $1 million.
Jim Irsay.
To fly a killer whale.
Yes.
Across this country.
Is he really?
Coddling this whale. it seems like perhaps the owner of your football team is contributing to the problem we're seeing illustrated.
Well, it's funny that you bring him up.
Hold on. I don't get to respond. He's going to go right.
I think context is important because there's new reporting out this week that Jonathan Taylor,
oh my God,
the famed running back for the Indianapolis Colts, is leaving training camp early because he's got an injury. But there's also like this scuttlebutt that he might not be a part of the team.
Is he leaving?
Well, they weren't inclined to pay him, but they are inclined to ship the whale. So I'd be just interested in your thoughts.
I don't think him flying the whale impacts the salary cap situation.
I think
in Indianapolis.
On principle, I'd appreciate if Jonathan Taylor was like, I'm taking a stand. We all know these are
he
killer
could try to
whales.
take a stand all he wants. Have you looked at the running back market out there right now? He doesn't have much leverage, and he hasn't played a full season.
I'd like it, now that you mentioned, I'd like that all zoological proceeds count against the cap. I feel like
you think so?
Yeah, I know. I think that's
a good point.
It's a good move.
As long as it's a known killer animal.
Retroactively, of course.
Hey, all I'm saying is I'm sure that orca played all 17 games.
Oh, guy's taking a... Wow.
Poor old man.
Show up and play.
Yeah, okay. All right. Well, that's the Indianapolis Colts for you. On to what we like to do every Thursday, which is talk about who won the week.
Mm-hmm.
There are many options, a lot of different storylines going on out there. We always start at the end of the table. Smash, you got a thought?
This week I'm going to give it to Mike Pence.
Okay.
Simply, for two reasons. One is that he made the debate stage, and a lot of people were counting him out and didn't expect him to do it. There are plenty of people in the Trump camp who were just hoping, crossing their fingers, that he wouldn't make it, but he made it. And two, because not only did he make the debate stage, he did it with some flourish. There was a quote where he said he hopes that President Trump has the courage to show up himself.
Wow.
And I've been
It's
waiting.
very funny.
I've been waiting for Mike Pence to drop that line in reference to his campaign for president. It was very funny, and it shows the sense of humor that we pulled out of the guy in his interview, and I'm hoping that more people get a chance to see. And for that reason, I think that Mike Pence won the week.
Oh, interesting. Good answer. Dunks?
I got to give it to Ron DeSantis because he had the courage to show up at the Ruthless live event in Iowa tonight.
Good pick. Good pick.
Yes.
You know, the list of candidates who have not shown up on the program has dwindled now to just two.
Down to two.
Yeah, Trump and Tim Scott.
Yeah.
Ron DeSantis had the courage, and it's going to be a great show tonight.
Yeah, it is. You're right. God, that's a great answer.
Good pick. Good pick.
Smug?
So this is a very unorthodox pick, and it's going to seem like it's out of left field because it is. Perry Johnson is my pick.
Wow.
Anyone who's on Twitter, as you scrolled, you've probably seen these ads for some random guy. You don't know what the hell is going on there. And then it says, I'm Perry Johnson, I'm running for president. Never heard of this guy, don't know what's going on. He has hit one of the thresholds to make the debate stage, and arguably the more difficult one. He's got 40,000 donors.
Is it the most difficult one? I don't know.
I think if you have resources, you can bombard the airwaves with ads. You can build up name ID. You can get a couple points on the board.
Yeah, but you can do the same thing to try to recruit donors.
I think getting donors is a lot more difficult than getting points. And in a polling where like everybody essentially is at 2%, and then you've got DeSantis at maybe 12%, and then Trump.
Has
at
anybody
like
seriously competed in Republican or Democrat in a primary of any kind where you're like 6 months into it and 6 months away from the first vote and you don't have a zero? You have a zero in terms of your support?
I listen, Perry Johnson getting 40,000 donors.
It's a big deal.
It ain't nothing. It ain't nothing.
A huge deal. And again, it's just a guy who I saw these. I mean, for the longest time, I want to say months, I've been occasionally scroll through Twitter. Who's this Perry Johnson guy? What is this all about? I guess he's serious about it. He made it happen, and that makes him the winner.
Okay. All right. So I initially this morning thought I was going to go with DeSantis, not just because of what you were talking about in terms of having the courage. He also, if you've noticed and watched the news of his events, has really sharpened some edges here in the last week to 10 days. And I think is throwing the best stuff of his entire campaign right now as we speak. But then they went for the third straight week where they changed out campaign managers. And like, I understand that there's a process, and I understand it probably makes them so angry that they have to continue to talk about process. I mean, we had 6 months of discussion in this country about like their super PAC, which is just like absurd. But it is 3 straight weeks of a process story that's, their own sort of me. So I couldn't give him the winner, although I do think he's doing great. My winner this week, Ramaswamy. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. I don't know of a lot of dudes who've got the balls to sit in the back of their PJ and give us a lecture on, modern America and fighting for the working class. This cat did it. And he didn't try to hide the backdrop. He kicked up a leg. He had the window in the back on the unmistakable window of a private plane. I mean,
I appreciate that. I love that so much because I think you see the irony is you see the left has kind of trained their troops to be if anyone has money, they're the devil. Meanwhile, every elected Democrat is just in the lap of luxury, just crushing it. And their voter base is just to appease the billionaires who are funneling money into this party to keep it running. Meanwhile, you've got a guy who's I'm from Cincy. I built this company myself. I got myself a PJ. Here's my kid on the PJ. I mean, that is a huge accomplishment.
Dude,
folks who travel, if you're putting your kids on the PJ, you've done it.
I'm being
High
sincere.
five.
And I actually think that the most interesting part of that, you don't try to sort of put a different backdrop together when you know what people are going to say. Because a big part for a guy like Vivek, who's running in this presidential, most people don't know who he is. Mm-hmm. If you've seen him because he's everywhere and he's on his PJ. But, they're just going to kind of get to know this dude. And he presenting this in the way that he is gets people talking, and it's controversy. And it's look at this fraud or look at this, that, and that. And not all press is good press, but all press is good press for Vivek right now. Because if his name shows up anywhere, it's points on the board for that campaign.
And also, again, to contrast with candidates in the past, is you saw Mitt Romney, who, in a way almost felt ashamed with having money and was trying so hard to hide, oh, I'm not rich, let's not talk about this.
He enjoys sport?
Yeah. And when he dropped the all-time greatest during a debate when he was I'll bet you $10,000.
Oh, that was so good.
What? It's a banana, Michael. What could it cost? $10? He's jumping 10 bands on a bet.
Or when they asked him about NASCAR and he's I'm friends with some of the owners.
Yeah. I forgot about that one.
Yeah.
So wild.
Or the time when it was oh man, we're just ragging on him, but I don't care. When they were do you go hunting? And he's yes, for varmints.
Assorted varmints.
Varmints. This guy's Yosemite Sam. or Elmer Fudd. It's just funny. Now, if I see Vivek in a Carhartt and suddenly he's in the back of a pickup truck in Iowa,
it'll go a little
then I'd make fun of him.
That plays a little differently. No question about that. Okay, so we got our picks in. There, you can take with that what you will. Here's a story Smash first flagged and we've looked into that we find positively galling. The CNN story is ex-FBI counterintelligence chief in talks to plead guilty over work he did for a Russian oligarch.
This is stunning.
So the lead of this is the former head of the counterintelligence at the FBI's New York office is in talks to plead guilty to charges related to work he allegedly did for a sanctioned Russian oligarch after leaving government, according to a court order. Chris McGonigal?
McGonigal?
I
think it's McGonigal.
It is McGonigal.
McGonigal. Okay, so McGonigal, anyway, was indicted early this year on these charges. I don't remember hearing about that, by the way.
Oh, of course not.
Well, this is actually what really burned me about this story. Not only the fact that this is not national news and hasn't been received the amount of coverage it deserves, but also that the CNN story about this pleading didn't include a very important data point.
So everyone should please listen to this. What was that data point?
So this is from the Wall Street Journal when the indictment came down earlier this year. In 2016, Mr. Comey, a guy who Michael talks about frequently, Jim Comey.
Fucking guy.
In 2016, Mr. Comey appointed veteran agent Charles McGonigal to head the Bureau's counterintelligence efforts in New York, where he was involved in some of the most sensitive work.
Oh, what kind of work was that?
That included the Crossfire Hurricane investigation.
Wait a minute.
Into claims the Trump campaign colluded with Moscow to steal the 2016
Wait a minute.
So here,
wait a minute, McGonigal.
Here you have a guy leading Crossfire Hurricane, accusing Trump of some bogus charges that he colluded with the Russians, and this guy's actually working for the Russians.
No, you don't understand. See, you got to get in there. You got to get your hands dirty. He's like Serpico,
Donnie Brasco.
Donnie Brasco. You just sometimes you got to do a little collusion to prove the collusion.
He went full Donnie Brasco.
I mean, this is? I mean, it's fucking crazy. I just was absolutely stunned when you brought this to my attention.
Yeah.
Because for years, it's a tragedy. The American people were lied to.
Right.
They were fooled into believing this insane theory that the Russians had fixed an election and that Donald Trump and his campaign were all in the pockets of Russia, when there could not be any greater opposite actual truth of what had occurred.
So wait, do you want a third little data point for us to talk around? There's like a third little plug-in on this. What he was charged with is violating U.S. sanctions, conspiracy, and money laundering for working in 2021 with Russian oligarch Oleg Deripaska.
Yeah.
Oh, so where have we heard that guy again? He was sanctioned, I know, but a lot of them were sanctioned. What was he sanctioned for? For interfering in the 2016 U.S. presidential election.
Yeah.
He's like, here's the thing is, I'm going to work for the guy that I'm going to try to investigate for interfering in the election, and I'm going to say actually it was Trump.
Can you imagine that pitch meeting when he goes in there and he's like, "Oh, look, I'm very familiar with your work. I think I have unique set of skills in order to serve you as my client."
But think about this. We only know about this story because of the absolute bullshit story selection that every mainstream media company chose to do at the beginning of Trump's administration, because they were trying to say that his campaign and his victory was illegitimate.
Right.
And the cover of Time magazine was the White House with like those onion domes in Moscow.
Yeah.
It's being like, Russia's won.
Right. And one of the great powers, and we talk about this often on the show, one of the great powers that the mainstream media has is the ability to select stories to feed to a captive audience.
Yep.
And now that audience is not as captive as it once was. They've lost credibility through stories that were fake like this. But their ability to select stories and influence the public conversation has not stopped.
Yeah.
Well, you wonder about McGonigal and whether he participated in any of the stories about the smoking guns that were available to investigators that we heard so much about over the course of 4 years.
Was he one of the clowns who signed the letter?
I don't think so.
No.
I think this guy's been a little bit, like he was on staff, right? So
at the time.
I don't think that he was like one of those former dudes who are like on MSNBC who are like more than happy to do
Because,
it.
I mean, that is what's so frustrating is that we are stuck with this apparatus that has been so corrupted where it's, I mean, by greed. This is another example of these people are motivated by greed. Whether it's these people like Clapper, all these people want a cable news contributor contract, so they're willing to sign crazy letters. They're willing to say whatever it takes. Oh, yeah, Trump, of course. Absolute bad guy. And I can't tell you why, but, my line of work, you see some things. Because they're lying for the money.
Right. And I mean, honestly, I really fault the media here because they spent 2 years on a story that was fabricated from absolute bullshit, leading to an impeachment that was fabricated on absolute bullshit.
Yep.
It was a waste of time. And
they all won Pulitzers.
And it did such a disservice to the American people, and it ruined whatever last shred of credibility they had with your average person. It ruined it. And it's not getting any better. I mean, they're continuing to feed bullshit stories to everybody everywhere.
And it's because half this country believes Russia stole the election, that Trump's a Russian asset. I mean, they see it as a mission accomplished. These sick, horrible people.
Yeah, I think you're right. But I mean, just imagine what you led this with, which was I read this whole story. You sent me this story. And I read it and I was like, wow, that's super troubling. The FBI is fucked. Like they've got a real bunch of problems over there. But nowhere in this story did it say what you found through research on what the Wall Street Journal actually skillfully reported on the indictment months ago was that he was head of Crossfire Hurricane.
Right.
I mean, that seems like relevant information here, does it not?
Newsweek reported that he was among the first FBI officials to be made aware of allegations that George Papadopoulos, a name that we all know,
this is like this 30-year-old candy ass who's never made a dime in politics, that somehow was a integral operative within the Trump campaign that set up all kinds of meetings with Russians to rig the election.
Boasted that he knew Russians had political dirt on Democrat candidate Hillary Clinton. And that was the difference maker in the election. And Newsweek goes on to say that that's the information that led to Crossfire Hurricane. So this guy was there at the beginning.
He was there at the jump.
Yeah.
He was there at the jump.
I think it's important for people to realize, like, you know, there's been no accountability in this, and I know a lot of candidates are, you know, talking about reforming or eliminating the FBI or anything. I mean, like, this is the sort of stuff that makes you have to take a very serious look at ripping out root and branch a lot of this career establishment that's in some of these intelligence agencies, because they have proven themselves to be either inept or corrupt. I think also, like, you know, I've been pretty critical of Donald Trump in this latest indictment on the January 6th stuff, based on like some of the stuff that's in the indictment on the behavior and everything. But I think, you know, I think we all acknowledge, like, as far as cases go, it's a pretty weak case.
Yeah. Right.
And one of the things I think is really interesting is sort of like the can of worms it opens up here, because, you know, I mean, if you can charge Donald Trump with obstructing the peaceful transfer of power, how can you not charge these FBI agents with doing that? When they knew that Christopher Steele was a compromised, you know, foreign spy who could have been being worked by Russia on the other side of this so-called dossier to spread misinformation about a candidate who was running for president of the United States, the fact that they were going to pay him $1 million to show them the fucking proof, and he couldn't do it. And what did they do? They went ahead with the investigation anyway.
Yeah.
Like, this guy's rock solid.
And then they,
you know, it's like at what point are they defrauding the United States?
Well, and as long as we're moonwalking all over the First Amendment to begin with, how about the journalists who gave 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, up to 4 years of coverage of stuff that we now know wasn't true?
The thing, and then they hand it over to BuzzFeed, and BuzzFeed prints the entire thing.
Yeah.
Completely. It's like, oh, well, you know, this may be newsworthy.
I mean, it's a great point, because the precedent that all of this nonsense sets, we have to live with
forever,
in perpetuity.
Right.
And at what point, in what manner, you know, I think that would let a lot of air out of the balloon, by the way.
Yeah.
If somebody could come up with a reasonable answer of where do you go to get your reputation back? Where do you go to hold people accountable for ruining our country over a period of 4 years? Like, who holds the bag on that?
Yeah.
Like, I just want, you know, just give me one Bernie Madoff here.
Yeah.
You know, I don't need the guy, the AIG guy. Just give me one Bernie Madoff.
I'll just take James Comey. I'm just going to go ahead and say James Comey. Like, where's his fucking indictment? This guy's just tweeting, you know, pictures from the woods and selling books. It's absurd. It's patently absurd.
That's another thing, is like all these liars of all this Russian nonsense made millions and millions of dollars off these book deals. It's like Holmes said earlier, they got Pulitzer Prizes.
Yeah.
These people made millions of dollars. They got their cable contributor contracts. They cashed in off of lies, absolute bullshit. And beyond just them being corrupt, they poisoned the minds of Americans and divided this country intentionally.
And undercut the peaceful transfer of power.
Bingo.
Right,
That
which
they
is
did.
like the thing. That's the thing.
They should be the ones who are getting hit with court cases. This is the problem, is in 2016, you had this group of journalists who took it upon themselves to be like, okay, we are going to be the resistance by any means necessary. If it means lying, if it means taking information from these corrupt individuals that can't be verified and just running with it, we will do it.
Look at these people starting fires in the streets in 2016. They must be very disappointed in Trump winning. Oh, Sean Spicer, stop lying about the crowd. Oh, Trump, you're colluding with the Russians. It's all bullshit. It wasted 2 years of our lives.
Right.
It ruined the impeachment process.
They won Pulitzers.
It's
sickening.
It shows that a Pulitzer's meaningless.
And they ruined
it's a meaningless prize.
They ruined the life of poor Nick Papagiorgio.
I mean, in all seriousness,
Papadopoulos.
Nick Papadopoulos.
Yeah, it always makes me think of that Vegas vacation. Nick Papagiorgio.
The fake ID.
Yeah.
Nick Papagiorgio.
Look, if the Astros can cheat and get to the World Series and not lose their World Series title, if you can lie and get a Pulitzer and not lose your Pulitzer once you've been once the storyline has been proven false, like none of these things.
And
matter.
Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame. You knew that was coming next.
He was winding up.
Funny you should say that.
He was winding up.
Guys got a lot of hits.
But don't you think, I mean, look, if you look at the American electorate, there is a ton of animosity, rightly so, on the fact that they have been sold lies for as long as that they've been sold lies. And there is this adherence to Donald Trump, partly because of what people thought was a good job that he did over the 4 years. But also, I got to imagine there's a solid percentage of people that were like, fuck those people, that's why.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to hold a guy accountable while holding none of your people accountable. Right. So I'm going to stand with that guy until somebody else holds the bag on this.
And that is such an understandable position to take.
It's an understandable
It's probably the most
position.
relatable thing.
And by the way, there were probably very legitimate things in the first 2 years that could have been written to hold the Trump administration accountable that completely got washed under the radar because they're lying to people about the only story they cared about.
Well, instead you got Adam Schiff. He's now running for an upgrade to the United States Senate.
Right.
Right? I mean, when's that guy get held accountable?
Never.
Does that ever happen?
He's a Democrat.
I mean, isn't that something?
He
That's
went on
a guy,
national television.
That's
and
a
said
guy
he had proof of collusion.
He should be subpoenaed.
Smoking gun, he said.
He should be subpoenaed. He should be handcuffed. And now this guy's possibly getting a Senate seat. I mean, this is why people are mad.
It's not oversight. What they were doing was not oversight. It was smearing the character of an individual for political purposes, and it wasn't like a campaign. They were actually convincing, and I think convinced, almost half of this country that something happened that did not happen.
Dude, there was a business decision made at the beginning of the Trump administration, a business decision made by all of the networks that we are going to make Russia collusion our biggest story. Very beginning of the Trump administration. I know reporters who are basically like, yeah, this is my chance to get a raise. This is my chance. I got to follow this story because the bosses are like,
this is what they want.
This is what they want.
Yeah.
And if you're a reporter, it's like, that's what you do, right? What the bosses say. So like, it was an active decision made by these networks that they were gonna pursue this story whether it was real or not, and it was the only thing that mattered, and it absolutely undercut the peaceful transfer of power. So I don't want to hear them complain about Trump and about the 2020 election. I have my own views about that, but every time they complain about Trump in 2020, all I can think about is what they did in 2016.
They did it. They created, you know, I hear some of these assholes sit and complain about how we're in a post-truth era.
Yeah.
How nothing matters anymore. Expertise is not trusted. And, it's, you know, establishments throughout this country are held in the lowest esteem of all time. Do you ever, under any circumstance, look in the mirror and ask yourself if you contributed to that? Like, does it ever occur to somebody who spent 4 years claiming they had smoking gun evidence of something that never happened and investigating the shit, throwing people like Nick Papagiorgio in jail? When do they get held accountable?
That's the thing is like,
is there a method for that?
I think that also is the source of all the frustration is when does the day of reckoning come for these liars and these people who did all these terrible things, whether it's Russiagate, whether it's COVID. No matter what, the people in power, these institutions, have not been held accountable. So there is a significant portion of this country who is frustrated and angry and has seen through these lies and says, who's looking out for me? These people have been lying to all of us, and you feel like you're a crazy person. You know, it's like that movie where the guy's got the glasses. It's like, look at all these lizard people. How am I the only person seeing this? And that's where the frustration comes from.
If you want to know why Trump has a gigantic lead among Republicans and is tied with Joe Biden, it's what Smug just said.
That's right.
Before the lizard people thing.
Before the lizard,
the lizard people are real too.
No, it's so true. And I want to, listen, we're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I think it goes to the point that we're making about editorial decisions that are made in the newsroom. And this just showed up today because I was having lunch and I looked on the TV and CNN was breathlessly covering a press conference like it was international war news.
Yeah.
About this unfortunate situation that happened on a riverboat dock in Montgomery, Alabama. And the facts of it were you had a bunch of assholes in a boat and one dude working at the dock, and they were trying to find a place to park the riverboat. And these guys parked in the riverboat area, and there was a confrontation between the guy that worked there and these assholes at the dock, and they got into a big fight. Clearly, like, this is the kind of shit, dumb shit, that happens in every city in America.
At that lunch, I was like, this is footage that's like at every lake in America on a given summer day. It's like drunk assholes are now fighting.
So you ask yourselves, like, okay, nobody was killed here. It was in Montgomery, Alabama during the middle of a day in a summer trip, and people got in a fight. So why is this national news?
Yeah.
We've got a presidential election happening. We've got a war overseas. You've got gas prices going back up. You've got inflation still hitting. Most Americans are more concerned about keeping their job than they are about being able to just sort of afford a lifestyle. And we're spending an hour in the middle of the day on a quote unquote trusted news network talking about this. So I pulled up the story that they wrote. And, you know, it gets to the beginning, it gives you a little introduction into it. And then you get to like the 6th paragraph, and it's the thesis for why this thing is on your television. The fight largely broke down along racial lines.
Oh, here we go.
In a city fraught with a fraught history of racial animus.
We're doing CRT on the riverboat fight now?
Well,
because some white people and some black people were fighting?
I mean, it's the most unbelievable. Look, it's a choice. What you choose to put on your network is a choice.
Yes.
There are, just today, in this city that we're sitting in, 4 different examples today of either shootings or stabbings or something within blocks of CNN headquarters where there were actually people killed. That's a fact. Those are not being covered. This is being covered breathlessly. Why? Yeah. Because the fight largely broke down along racial lines in a city with a fraught history of racial animus, quote unquote. You have to ask yourself, what are they fucking doing here?
Yes.
The only thing that they're trying to accomplish is to make people more divided.
Bingo.
Right.
That is it, because what they're trying to do is tap into this just like ridiculous, absurd, emotional response to racism in America, that like all of a sudden we're on the brink of a fucking race war because 4 idiots got into a fight with a guy on a riverboat dock in Alabama. Like, I don't know a lot about the whole Charlie Manson Helter Skelter thing, but wasn't that his point?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to amplify this shit to try to convince people that all of America is bad and that everything that is what we're doing here is a fraught racial history, and every lens that you ought to apply to anything that happens is based on people's racial animus, this, that, and the other, like, you're the fucking problem.
Right.
It's disgusting. And the media to intentionally use this as a source to gin up stories, which is, just like you said, it's dividing the country. It's disgusting. It's horrific. And it is completely unprincipled, because you now have situations where the media is willing to say, oh, well, you know, if this, you know, black guy doesn't agree with our points, it's because he's a white supremacist. They're willing to say that black people are white supremacists at this point.
Well, yeah, we had Hung Kao in here, and he was a white supremacist, according to them.
It's stunning, because they are no longer trying to base anything in reason, where it's like, how could this person be a white supremacist? That makes 0 sense. But they have to make everyone feel afraid. They've got, okay, this is a racially fraught time. Oh my God, it's a powder keg. I live in a powder keg. I have to be nervous. I have to be worried. Okay, what should I do? The media is completely trying to divide this country for the sake of their own ratings, and that's just such a disgusting proposition.
Well, I think it's more than ratings, Smug. I really think it's more than ratings, because if you look at some of these networks, their ratings are plunging faster than the Titanic. I mean, I think it's about power, because I think that they're less interested in informing people. So there's this fight in Alabama. Okay, there's a story. You should cover it. You should think about, like, okay, what does this mean for race in America? Does that mean you go wall to wall with this one story, or do you cover murders down the street, or do you cover some of the economic woes that people have?
This is a national news network.
Right. Inform people about what's going on. Don't try to indoctrinate them to a point where it elevates you, puts you in a point of power, because it divides everybody else in the country.
I'm not sure.
I think it's about
that
power.
This story makes the front page of the Montgomery newspaper, if not living in this environment.
Yep.
This is the kind of thing that when we were growing up, you would see in the Metro section of an unfortunate set of circumstances with a bunch of assholes that ought to go to jail for assault because they're just being dicks. or they got too drunk. Or you know what? Maybe they are racists. Maybe they are. And that exists too. And that's a shitty thing to be. But like, ultimately, is this a national news story that somebody sitting in the middle of Denver, Colorado needs to know about because it is essential for their news consumption? Or is it essential for you to try to convince that person in Denver, Colorado that there is a race war happening and they ought to be a part of it?
I think they try to manipulate the people of this country. And people have said over and over the last 8 years that they won't have it. They're tired of it. They're tuning out. And I think that
a summer of cities getting burned down wasn't enough. And like, it took a second. I took a step back when we were watching this. Number one, CNN is running this press conference of a boat fight, right? And then I stood back and I was like, why is there even a press conference for the boat fight?
That's what I'm saying.
There's a boat fight press conference.
A boat fight.
I'm here to like, give you guys an update in the press about the boat fight.
Right, you would think they were declaring a state of emergency.
We want the National Guard. These 4 dudes are being real dicks about the parking situation.
4 dudes got drunk and didn't like the parking situation, and they started a fight with the guy who was in charge of the parking situation. Now all of a sudden it's network national news.
Yeah.
Like, guys, the reason I bring this up, I just think it's important. Like, I think people need to understand things in America are not nearly as bad as you think they are because of the information inputs that you get from people who have a different, they want something different than you do. Like, you want to figure out how to make a living. You want to figure out how your kids are protected, how they get a good education, how your country can come to life in a way that like it just hasn't happened in the last few years. They don't want that. They don't want that. They want to piss you off. They want to make you think there is not a single editorial decision you can convince me that fronting this thing on CNN isn't because they want to convince you that there is a huge racial strife happening in your community right now, and that you need to be aware of it.
And that thing is, it's necessary for the left to have this kind of a narrative to be able to maintain this kind of control on people. Where like you can see day to day, it's like, oh man, like every statistic shows me that the vast majority of Americans can't afford. They'd go bankrupt if they got a surprise $400 expense. Like they can't afford that. Or oh man, we had a record number of companies in America go bankrupt in the first 6 months of this, unprecedented, in the first 6 months of this year.
Yeah.
There's never been a time where so many companies have gone bankrupt. Instead, to keep the left in line, they have to convince all of them that, like, here's why you're living in hell. Here's why America is a terrible country. A great example of this is Libs of TikTok put this video out of this lady who was like, I live in San Francisco, and I was walking to the grocery store, and this, like, homeless guy just, like, spits in my face and says, F off. And I said, excuse me, did you just spit in my face? And he says, I'll rape you right here on the street if you don't get the hell out of here. And everyone walking by just acting normal. She's like, everyone just walked by, act like it was normal. And I was so surprised. And then people go through her post and it's like, vote blue no matter who. This is a terrible situation where like our criminal justice system is locking away. It's like, that is the disconnect right there.
Well, because
the left has to convince these people, don't trust what you see in front of your eyes. Put up with it.
Right, and the media amplifies the environment that you're describing. And, whenever the left has a policy to quote-unquote fix one of these situations in society, if you oppose it, then you are a tool of white supremacy.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And so people like her are powerless because if they admit what is obvious and true, that their communities are now lawless, then they have internalized that makes them a white supremacist.
Yep.
Because that's what they're being fed
like,
by
CNN.
Shit,
I don't want to be a white supremacist.
Right,
no one's going to hang out with me.
Right.
This is tragic. Just ask Nick Sandmann whether this narrative exists.
Yeah.
Right? This is the kid who the media breathlessly covered, who's wearing a MAGA hat, was confronted by an activist. The activist is yelling. They take pictures of it selectively, making it look like he's yelling at this old
like he provoked this thing,
right?
Which of course he didn't do.
Which of course you find out a year later, and like every media organization had to fork over millions of dollars to Sandman because they were wrong and they just straight libeled this guy.
Yeah.
Defamation in every sense. But if that narrative did not exist, would that situation have existed?
Bingo.
No.
Dude, that's a great comparison.
It would not
Great
have.
comparison.
And so, like, you got to open your eyes to that shit. It is not... Those of us who've grown up in this country, we know our relationships. We know the people that we interact with, most people don't think along racial lines. You know, you don't even consider it. It doesn't even get into your head about, wow, I'm friends with a black guy. Like, nobody thinks that way unless you are trying to construct news in a national environment in this country.
Right.
It is outrageous.
Right.
And I think they ought to apologize for it, but you're never going to hear. You'll get that when you get the apology from Adam Schiff.
There you go.
All right. Sorry I got so worked up about that.
No, it's a good.
Just,
It's
you know.
important.
It is important because if you look at the stories they're not telling about crime, I mean, we don't need to just belabor all this, but like you mentioned this, people are getting shot at record rates in the city of D.C. They're getting stabbed, they're getting mugged, their cars are being stolen. And it just it goes unaddressed.
It's not national
day after
news.
day after day. It's not national
It's
news.
Metro section in the Washington Post is what it is.
Right.
It's Metro section in the Washington Post.
Right.
These are like
Doesn't
working
fit the
class
narrative.
people getting murdered, like that Uber driver, just killed for nothing.
Right.
And that he didn't deserve their attention.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, maybe if the Washington Bullets had changed their name to the Wizards a decade earlier, none of this would have happened.
That's exactly right. Good thinking on that. All right, we need some animal news to just wipe the slate clean and get back to where we need to be, fellas. You ready for this?
Okay.
This is the most unbelievably fucked up story I have heard in a very, very long time. So this is according to the Washington Post. Peggy Jones didn't see the danger hovering in the sky above on July 25 as she rode her tractor and mowed her family's 6-acre property in Silsbee, Texas. Silsbee? That feels right. Around 8 p.m. I was just working hard out there at night. Some 3 hours into the chore, a snake fell from the sky and quickly wrapped itself around her right forearm.
Number one, that's fucking nuts.
Imagine the panic that you have.
No one expects the air snake. Like, what's the reaction? It doesn't make sense.
Within seconds, she was attacked again. This time by a hawk determined to reclaim its prey that it just fumbled.
This is the worst luck in history.
With the snake coiled around Jones's forearm, the hawk stabbed and scraped and clawed her arm as it tried to fly off with its quarry. All the while, the snake, which she estimated was at least 4 feet long, was constantly striking at her face. It hit her glasses
This sucks so much.
a couple of times, chipping the edge and spitting a liquid she suspects was venom. Jeez. The brown and white hawk briefly relented, hovering a few feet overhead before swooping down again and trying to wrest the snake from Jones. She said the bird did this about 4 times, increasing the intensity in each attack.
This is like
she's taking snake to the face.
This is the worst possible situation. Like, what is happening?
This is
all within seconds. So like you're on. Like I know when I used to like mow the lawn, that was like my time. Like I was listening to music and I'm just zoned, right?
Yeah.
And so like during that moment of like serenity, you're not listening to anyone's bullshit. First the snake, and then seconds later the hawk, and now a snake going after your face.
You got a
like,
water mock that's just like striking at your face while
spitting venom. Like, how do you even comprehend what the hell?
I have to respect the snake in this situation who went from prey to predator immediately. You know, like he is soaring in the clouds about to be devoured, and he lands on this woman's arm and he immediately reverses the
He's
situation.
like, she is my problem.
Now she is my prey. Just absolutely incredible situational awareness from the snake.
In other words, the hunted becomes the hunter.
Right.
It's incredible.
Joan, 64, took off on the tractor racing towards the house while screaming. Her husband, Wendell, who just finished mowing the front yard of the property, heard his wife screaming hysterically as she zigzagged towards him and flailing her bloodied arm. He headed toward her on a riding mower. Look, I hate to make the observation about this, but I've been on a lot of riding mowers. Those things don't have a great 0 to 60 time, I'll be honest with you. It doesn't feel fast enough to me.
No.
He's like, oh, geez, I'm going to have to hit 4th gear on this one.
Yeah. Well, yeah, maybe he was finishing up an episode of the variety program and he didn't want to turn it off quite yet.
He's like, oh, my God. But so The two power walk to their Dodge Ram pickup truck. See, that's going to have a little bit more action there. That shows some ingenuity. Wendell loaded her in, and they drove to the emergency room about 15 minutes away. Calming down, she started to tell her husband what happened. He was in disbelief. I'm thinking she's still in hysterics, Wendell said. Once they arrived at the hospital, doctors cleaned out Jones's wounds, bandaged her up, and injected her with antibiotics and wrote her a prescription for more to take home. Having seen the puncture marks on her arm, Jones and her husband thought that the snake had bitten her, but doctors told her that they were actually stab wounds that the hawk made with its talons. Still, the Joneses spent the first night watching her arm to make sure it didn't swell up or turn black, because they knew what to look for in Silsbee, Texas.
This is what's great. It says, because 2 years ago, a venomous snake had bitten Jones while she was clearing another property so they could build, like, damn, this is such terrible luck.
Right.
At some point, you have to, like, I don't know, put snake guards on your fucking mower.
I mean, this is like, this is like getting attacked by a shark and struck by lightning at the same time.
I mean, it's just unbelievable.
I'll tell you, I don't know if you guys watched the video here, but I feel very bad for Peggy. I mean, she was shaken up.
Wow.
Visibly, she was visibly shaken when recalling the situation. But this is a very strong woman.
Peg is tough.
This is a woman who's seen a snake while clearing a field before, and you know what she did? She went out and cleared the field again.
She did.
She's
That's
as,
right.
she's
That's
as
a good
American
point.
as they come.
That's right.
I mean, this is unbelievable.
And again, it goes to the animal kingdom has to be put in its place. This
Yeah.
is another example. They're attacking the best among us. The innocent Americans just doing what the silent majority are being attacked by these bastards.
So like, hold on. I just want to get this last piece in. She was maimed by the hawk. The snake was pounding her eyeglasses with its teeth.
Yeah.
So it never actually landed the venom blow.
I guess not.
But they didn't know, because the after she took off on her tractor, the hawk took off with the snake.
Did
So,
it?
like-
It said that?
Yeah, they couldn't find the snake. They didn't know what kind it
So
was.
I think it's telling because, like, in that moment, the animal kingdom turned on the human. Like, they were both going after the innocent human here.
As we've
right.
documented on Friday.
It's a perfect example of, like, where these bastards are working together.
Yeah, they could have been in collusion. Like maybe the hawk was using the snake as a weapon here.
It was it was an air to ground bomb.
Yeah.
You know, it was just snaking her.
Maybe they thought about it.
Yeah, like the hawk is like the Enola Gay.
It's like a trial run.
Yeah, and he's dropping the snake down, and they're in collusion.
Yeah.
And they clearly caught her by surprise, because I'm confident that if Peg had her wits about her, she would have taken both of them, thrown them in front of the mower, and hit the throttle.
Yeah.
And
I
then,
mean, honestly, you know what? I think Duncan's got a point here. This might be like a collusion kind of situation, because, like,
Watch the skies.
a hawk is like, okay, I can eat a snake. That's kind of a snack, right?
But I can eat
we
the
can work
person.
together, snake, and both of us are feasting on a person. That's a bigger deal. It would not surprise
Yeah,
me.
you can take. I'll peck out some eyes, and you take the limbs.
You take the rest.
And
Would not surprise me at all.
I feel like there's something to that.
We'll stay on top of that.
And now they know that, like, you know, Hank has had some trouble
Right.
with authorities, and they're concerned about their marching orders. You never know.
Well, it's a power vacuum.
Yeah, and so
That's it.
the snake and the hawk were like, I got an idea.
Yeah.
I got an idea. We can take these fuckers out. You go talk to the whales. Oh my God. All right. So a story in Axios covers America's deepest partisan divides that are getting deeper. I'm not surprised to hear this at all, for all the reasons that we talked about.
Who would have thought?
The top of the show, but they go through a whole bunch of different things, everything from like gun laws to global warming to abortion to, you know, all kinds of different stuff. And like the takeaway is that wherever we were like 10 years ago in terms of the separation between conservatives and liberals, it's like doubled.
Yep.
In terms of its separation. And the first thing I thought about was something you tweeted, Smug, maybe a few days ago, about how it was like the Supreme Court, Americans' faith in the Supreme Court.
Yep.
And like, if you look at independents and Republicans have gone up in their faith in the Supreme Court. Independents have basically stayed exactly the same way that they've been for 30 years. And liberals have dropped off the face of the planet. And so, like, the conclusion, well, we've got a crisis of confidence here in the Supreme Court.
So the media will report, oh my God, the Supreme Court, this must be a corrupt institution. Everything must be wrong. When everyone except for Democrats It's just chugging along like it's a normal day. This is a crisis because for the first time, the left is in a position where they can't just steamroll whatever they want through the Supreme Court. So for them, it's a crisis.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, wait, we used to legislate from the bench. What happened?
Well, that exposes the feedback loop between the media and the professional left. I mean, they're just constantly talking to one another. The media is convinced by whatever the left says. The left knows that the media is going to say their talking points like it's more evidence.
I mean, some of this stuff is actually just amazing, though. I mean, like immigration should be decreased. You know, basically 58% of Republicans believe in that. Democrats from 2003 to 2023, a 20-year period, have gone from 42 to 18.
Yep. And
how can you watch what's happening on the border and be like, yeah, no, this is working exactly as we intended?
To me, that was the most telling thing about this data, and it echoes other points that we've seen before, where the left has essentially moved very far left, while the right and the center are essentially just like trucking along. Like if you look at for the vast majority of these issues, it's worry about global warming, abortion should be legal under any circumstance, immigration is another example, completely or somewhat unsatisfied with K-12 education in the U.S., it's almost a straight line from where conservatives stand.
But I find the most fascinating because we all lived the COVID adventure together. And you have maybe, look, a lot of Democrats don't. I mean, that's just a fact.
Well, because they're so scared of global warming, they've decided not to.
They decided not to have children.
Yeah.
But, you look at, like, back in 2003, Republicans actually had a 9-point margin where they were satisfied with K through 12 education in the United States more than Democrats were.
Well, part of that is probably George Bush and No Child Left Behind.
Sure.
Like people were...
Yeah, they thought that there was
something's going to come here that's going to be good.
We're headed in the right track.
Right.
And now you look at it, not surprisingly, you have Democrats have gone up.
They're like, COVID, give me more of that. We loved Zoom graduation. It's just like the most cowed bullshit, a cowardly opinion to have in this day and age in our country, to be like, you know what? Bang up job, K through 12 education in this country. We're doing fantastic.
Like, how can you say that?
Yeah.
I don't know of any educators that would say that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? How can you say, like, so Republicans have gone all the way down to 30. Frankly, that seems high.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In terms of 30%, maybe because people with local control of their schools they feel pretty good about their
There's
own
a lot
kids.
of communities that figure it out.
Totally. But, like, you look at this and it's like, oh, okay.
But I mean, that to me was the most striking thing, is that, conservatives have essentially been on a linear, projection of where they were 20 years ago to where they are now. Like, the difference is like single percentage points for most of these issues. And you see Democrats have just swung wildly.
The abortion one was really surprising.
Huge.
I mean, I guess I shouldn't be surprised.
Only because the question was it surprising.
And I think it's important. We should tell them. So the question is, abortion should be legal under any circumstance.
Any circumstances. Remember, the Democratic Party used to be about safe, legal, and rare.
That was Bill Clinton's
That was
position.
the whole thing. And in 2003, they're at 32%. Now 59. So that means like late term abortion. Okay, abortion at 38 weeks. Just fine.
No
Any
problem.
circumstances, they're fine with that.
That's a 26-point swing for Democrats. And for Republicans in 2003, it was 15%. In 2023, it's 12%.
Just think
3-point swing.
Think about how radical that is. And I know, the liberals will hate to hear this, but this is like far, far left of the Europe that they love so much and want to emulate.
Totally.
Completely.
Like insanely far left position on abortion, but they're fine with it. Anything up until the moment of birth. Why not?
It's horrific. And that's the thing. For me, the takeaway was this divergence that they say, oh, wow, the deep partisan divides are getting deeper. It's because the left has just gone completely unhinged.
Right.
And the feedback loop, as we've been talking about through this whole episode, only reinforces that. Mm-hmm. At what point could you look at your kids' K through 12 education during COVID and be like, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I want more of it. Unless you're watching MSNBC all day and you listen to Weingarten or whoever the hell they have on saying like, oh, well, teachers are actually fighting to put kids in the classrooms. And you're like, yes, see?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. And then you see something out of Baltimore where the literacy rate is next to 0 for 8th graders. And you're like, well, Randy Weingarten was on NBC saying that everything's going to be okay. So I guess it's all right if they can't read.
Yep.
Like
Yep,
LeBron,
that's
the
it.
LeBron James Academy, nobody can read.
And then they sit back on their dock in the Hamptons and take a sip of Chardonnay and say, "Sure, it's too bad about those kids."
Yeah.
Bingo.
It's
That's it.
criminal. Why isn't that on the front page of every paper?
Because there's a bar brawl down in Alabama.
That's right. That deserves a headline far more.
All right, so final thing. Everybody has followed, it's online, has followed this story about this woman that was on an American Airlines flight, and she was like dubbed like Karen of the Year, right? Because she got up in the middle and started like screaming nonsensical things about how
I
somebody's
don't know they were
not real.
nonsensical, but we'll discuss this.
Okay, all right. And this blonde lady, she's been charactered on every single like piece of online. Like there's been endless stories about like who this crazy woman is. They had to evacuate the flight. She was claiming the flight wasn't safe. Off she went. Everybody else went. And like people have been, for some reason, trying desperately to find out who this woman is. Right? So, and there's been a lot of speculation, this, that, and the other. Well, now they've come to a conclusion. They've found this actual woman. You're the one that smashed. You're the one that flagged this.
Well, what struck me is that why would they I don't know if you guys noticed, they actually printed her name, they printed her address, they printed a picture of her home.
This
which
was the
is
Daily
nuts.
Mail?
And, and I don't understand what's the impetus for releasing her name, the picture of her house, and her address. I mean, why is that necessary?
What's the news value that's happening here?
Right, and now maybe she has to move. Maybe she wanted. I'm guessing not. I'm guessing she didn't want her name and address listed in a newspaper. But like, on what level are they responsible for that? And like this lady, yeah, it's been funny. It's a meme everybody's following, and there are all these bros online who are like, how can I find this? This woman's the love of my life. I don't know if you've seen that. There's like a whole cottage industry of people who post this, and they felt fallen in love with this.
I mean, so essentially she like walks up to the front of the plane and she's like, that dude back there is not real. He is not a real dude. He's bad news. This is my warning to all of you.
I'm getting off.
Here's the thing: is in society, whenever you have someone who's willing to like get up and tell the truth and warn others, the thing is that like the few who listen to him, they always do well, right? And so everyone's like, oh shit, what does this mean for all of us? You know, the airline like sends people to look through it. The best is like all the details completely unrelated to the horrible things that the media did. We're like, posting a photo of her home is insane. That's
what's
like
the point?
That's like, hey, well, maybe some crazy person will do some violence, and then we can report on that too. Completely nutty. But the details of this, I think, are completely fucking wonderful. It says here, despite claiming I'm getting the F off, and there's a reason why I'm getting the F off in the viral video of her storming up and down the plane. The 38-year-old was not willing to leave the American Airlines flight and had to be moved by staff. Then it gets even better. So like they try to they drag her to through security to the front of the airport, and she tried getting through TSA 3 other times, right? Like
she's trying to get back on that plane.
I mean, like TSA is such a horrible experience for everybody, and I love somebody letting them feel horrible things. Like now you have to deal with me.
You want to let
tables
that
have
lady-
turned, right? Like now I'm the crazy irrational person.
Yeah.
Usually you tell me to take my shoes off, which is crazy irrational. I have to deal with that shit. Now the rational person is your problem.
Right.
So I fully support
It's
that.
insane to try to go through TSA 3 times. In fact, whatever they charged her with, I mean, she would be found not guilty by reason of insanity, based solely on the fact she tried to go through TSA.
Willingly trying to go through TSA 3 times.
Just based on that. But
Right.
so here's the thing. We now know where this woman lives. We know what her name is. We know what her address is. We know all of this stuff. I still have no idea what it is that she's been charged with, nor do I have any understanding why a seemingly well put together young woman has lost her GD mind.
Well, this might just be conjecture. I'm just guessing. Maybe she just like took an Ambien and had a bad reaction.
Doesn't it seem like
You know what I mean?
I thought that was a great
And
guess.
instead, we're just gonna like try to ruin this woman's life.
Yeah.
Like she's not a public figure. So yeah,
Right.
she had some crazy moment on an airplane. Everybody's got a fucking phone in their pocket now. I'm sure there's some moment in all of our lives we wouldn't have want somebody there with a video camera.
Totally.
I'd like to
let's
think
have
I-
a little more grace for people who aren't like public figures in society. It's crazy.
And on airline, you got what's coming.
Yeah. Okay.
Right, Smug?
Well,
I mean,
You have what's coming. Although she's not on Southwest.
I
so-
just love the fact that what does she mean? What does she mean? That's I think the only merit to any kind of like journalism and trying to find her would be to ask like, was this a lizard person? Like,
What
did you have
come
some
in contact
compelling
with?
evidence? Because, like, if this isn't like an Ambien fit, then I want to get to the bottom of this. Maybe she's got something that we should all hear.
Maybe
This
it's the UAPs.
it could be a UAP situation, you know, like, and she had a nice house. So this is not like, you know, someone whose life is falling apart. This is someone who's got things together. So when they're trying to warn us, they're like, hold up, maybe lizard person in our presence. I think maybe you give her a listen. Listen to the lady's side of the story. That's the one thing nobody's tried here.
It's no crazier than what I watched on CNN this afternoon.
There you go. There you go.
I know that.
The flight, the story does say that the flight was headed to Orlando.
Oh my gosh.
So the plane was full of beleaguered families, people going on business trips, and
folks who should be charged, probably.
Charges.
She knew.
Maybe she was sitting next to an adult Disney fan.
Oh my God. You've cracked the code on the Ruthless Variety
She
program.
was trying to warn us.
There was a Disney adult sitting next to us. All she was doing is trying. Now look what's happened.
If she's listening to the
Whistleblowers
show,
always take it the hardest.
You're
That's
more
right.
than welcome, ma'am, to come on the show, explain your side of the story, because I think there's something compelling happening there. Something. She saw something. Something.
I'd like to hear her point of view. Well, listen, tune in tonight. We've got a live stream of the event.
Yeah.
We'll be sending this stuff around so you don't have to go searching for it. It'll be on our Twitter. We'll put it on a webpage. We'll make sure you get it.
Man, we're going to do King of the Hill. We're going to play lots of games. We're going to sing. We're going to dance. We're going to entertain.
We're going to do all that. And the candidates are going to do it too, whether they know it or not.
Yeah.
You're going to want to tune in. You're going to want to tune in. I think we did it, fellas.
I think so. Absolute banger of an episode. Gentlemen, thank you so much to our listeners, and thank you so much to everyone who we see tonight in Iowa. So, until next time, minions, keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs. We'll see you on Tuesday. Stay ruthless.